and welcome to Telewizja Republika. As we are getting close to the end of the second year of war that Russia wages against Ukraine, several publications show up that try to sum up what happened over the time and outline plans for the future. Last week, Washington Post published a text in which authors claim the United States plans for Ukraine. Those plans do not foresee a retaking of territories that Ukraine lost to Russia. According to the authors, the Biden administration is revising its strategy in Ukraine, moving away from regaining lost territory to focusing on defending against new Russian advances and strengthening Ukraine's military and economy for the long term. This shift marks a significant change from the previous year's strategy or approach, which involved rapid deployment of training and sophisticated equipment to Ukraine in hopes of pushing back Russian forces. A senior U.S. administration official noted, and that's a quote, "It's pretty clear that it will be difficult for them, the Ukrainians, to try to mount the same kind of major push on all fronts that they tried to do last year," end quote. The thing is that even this new strategy and the success of this new strategy heavily depends on the U.S., Ukraine's largest donor. President's $61 billion funding request is crucial, though its approval, as we know, faces challenges in Congress. Ukrainian President Zelensky highlighted the importance of U.S. aid, saying, and that's a quote, "We wouldn't survive without U.S. support. It's a real fact," end quote. However, latest claims of Ukrainian president or show that the head of this state leans towards German support and taking over Germany's role of the major supporting power to a long-term Russian partner. Remember, Germany is a long-standing partner of Russia in its European reset policies. Zelensky made it clear in his latest statements. One of them was quoted by Kyiv Post. And here's what Kyiv Post writes about those claims. That's a quote. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday warned that a drop in aid from the United States to Kyiv would send a poor message as U.S. President Joe Biden faces a Republican blockade on further support. With an eye on U.S. aid potentially diminishing, Zelensky urged Germany to use its economic weight to rally EU partners to give more to Kyiv in its fight against Russia, end quote. The fact is that the European powers are traditionally pro-Russian and have always been over the span of last 30 years. Those were the politicians and those were the states who feeded Putin or Putler to the position where he is right now. And they did that by pumping billions of dollars through Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 and other energy deals. According to Washington Post, authors, the new U.S. strategy for the Ukrainian defense involves avoiding further territorial losses and focusing on tactics where Ukraine has seen success, like longer distance fires and naval defense. This shift indicates a move away from the large-scale artillery battles seen in previous years. President Zelensky insists on retaining an offensive posture, but U.S. policymakers note these concerns about being ambitious without clear U.S. aid. That view is challenged in the way by the former NATO Secretary General, also quoted by the paper. He argues for a more immediate and overwhelming military response. He emphasized, and that's a quote, "You cannot win a war by pursuing an incremental step-by-step approach. You have to surprise and overwhelm your adversary," end quote. But a few days ago, a completely different approach was presented in analysis titled "Hold, Build and Strike," a vision for rebuilding Ukraine's advantage in 2024 by Michael Kaufman, Rob Lee and Dara Mascoy. This text published by War on Rocks, proposes a strategy based on active defense and long-range strikes. The strategy advises against pursuing operations that expand resources without clear advantages. Instead, it suggests leveraging long-range strike capabilities to target Russian infrastructure and bases, of course, while avoiding attritional fights that could undermine future success. The authors propose a process of learning from 2023 missed opportunities. They analyze why Ukraine's 2023 offensive didn't repeat the success of 2022, attributing it to the lack of defensive advantage in fires, inability to scale force employment, and lack of necessary enablers. They emphasize the need for Western help in addressing these issues. But according to them, one thing is crucial: sustained Western support and making key decisions in 2024 to put the war on a positive trajectory. The authors argue that with the right strategies and support, Ukraine could potentially regain the initiative and inflict defeats on Russia in 2025, leading to favorable war termination terms for Ukraine. The big question is, what does it mean? What kind of terms are those terms that are acceptable for the West, and what terms are acceptable for the Ukrainian people? People who are fighting this war since 2014. And we are already in year 2024. It is February 2024, which marks not only the date of the full-scale invasion, but also marks the 10th anniversary of illegal annexation of Crimea. 10 years ago, a little green man invaded Crimea and illegally annexed it to Russia. And the world is just watching it. You can join us on rackracon.com. Here's our Substack account. You can leave us your email and we can be in contact, in touch, because we are trying to publish daily analyses based on the services that are not always available for all the Internet explorers. So you can leave us your email and we will provide you with the daily analyses from the front lines of the war that is being waged against the West. Because that's what we are going to talk about on my show. My name is Michał Rachoń. This is Rack Racon, and we roll in.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
Joe Lindsley? Joe, I haven't seen you for a while, but gosh, it looks like you are in the place where Ruskies did something terrible.
Indeed, Michał. Hello from Kharkiv, 30 miles from Russia. I've been here for a couple of weeks, and where I'm standing right now is the site of one of the 3 Russian attacks on this city last Tuesday. We had 2 attacks in the morning, and then there was an attack at 10 p.m. last Tuesday night. And this place, as we'll look around, is a reminder that Russia, they are the school shooters of nations. Kharkiv is such a lovely city. This was one of the most historic buildings in the city, part of a university. You can look next to me. I can't even tell what kind of cars these were. Melted in the blast. I was very close to the blast at the moment that it happened. I still can't get that sound out of my mind, and that applies to everyone here. I know so many people who survived this and happened to be nearby, and just but for the sort of few twists of fate, were able to survive this attack. And this is on a civilian building. The coffee shop around the corner is a place I frequent. They were back in business mere hours after the attack, pouring coffee and helping the rescuers and volunteers, but also open to customers. And as you look, you can see that, here I am in this war zone, but there's traffic on the street. The city doesn't stop. And this is one reason why I'm here is really to show the world the spirit of this city of Kharkiv, because I would say this is the extreme edge. These are the people that believe in freedom so much that they're willing to risk everything to be here. And I was at a gathering yesterday of some of the intelligentsia of the city, and that includes warriors and volunteers of all different sorts. And one of them shared these words: Yes, living in this city is crazy, dangerous, frightful, and yet so desperately needed. To live in Kharkiv is to be in your place because you want to, because you need to, because you don't want to leave, because you don't want to leave it alone. And I'd say for the people who remain here, maybe about 150, 200,000, it was a city of 1 million before the full-scale invasion, more than 1 million. The people who are here, they see this as part of the resistance, because they know that if they left this city in droves, it would be it would be open to Russian occupation. And I was talking even with a girl in her 20s who was living in exile in Spain, and she returned not only to Ukraine but here in the past weeks to this city because the city was being attacked so much, and she thought it was important to be here and to be part of that resistance. And so here, as we look at these ruins around me here, we know that if the United States, in particular, and Germany sent air defense systems enough to protect cities like Kharkiv, this would not happen in the way it's happening. These attacks would be a much less frequent. And right now, the Patriot missiles are there to protect Kyiv, which in some ways has become sort of the Disneyland for foreign politicians. If you got low numbers in the polls, you can go to Kyiv, and it's great for your image if you're a foreign politician. And Kyiv is pretty well protected. But a place like Kharkiv, 30 miles from Russia, here the missiles can hit, as did this one, before the air raid alarm can even sound. And, the question is, if the West, forget about talking about going on the offensive against Russia, but, if the West is serious about defending free people, like the brave people here who so much believe in freedom that they won't leave this city, even Michal, as I talk to you right now, there could be a missile any moment. Everyone who's here, you accept that fact.
I'm absolutely stunned. I'm just watching it and thinking about, it's been like 2 years. We are talking every Monday for 2 years almost about the war that is just entering its third year, and yet as we are approaching this third year, I just quoted a couple of articles. You sent me actually an interesting article by Anna Applebaum, the wife of Polish foreign minister, an expert on Russia, and it looks like it's all just a part of the internal politics of trying to push their own agendas on the political scene, while people are being heroes over there, like you are, because you are my hero being over there, and the people who are heroes because like the girl that you just described are coming back over there to be witnesses, to stand still in the territory that is attacked by Russia, and the whole world is watching it, and we are going to enter the third year of watching it, basically, because it's not a thing that is unthinkable of to provide some anti-weapon systems or to provide long-range missiles so that Ukraine can throw Russia back away from its borders. What's wrong with us?
Well, at first, it's very important to mention that, even while Ukraine continues to get attacked like this, Ukrainians are using their ingenuity and their desire to win and to be free to fight back in very interesting ways. So in the past week, since we last talked, the past couple weeks, Ukrainians have had some pretty amazing attacks on key Russian oil depots. One near St. Petersburg, more than 1,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Ukrainians have been able to send drones and to cause significant damage to major Russian oil depots. These are huge successes for Ukraine. Some other huge successes for Ukraine in the past couple weeks, destroying, it seems, 3 of Russia's most high-level aircraft. Some the A-50 that cost $330 million and 2 IL-76. And, this is why the Russian propaganda wants to hide these Ukrainian successes. So they had got everyone talking about, they said there were Ukrainian POWs on one of those planes. We don't know if that's true or not. If so, the Russians put them in danger. But all those headlines missed this extraordinary fact that Ukrainians, using the sort of small number of tools they get from the West, by all accounts, they MacGyvered some of these weapons in the West, because a lot of them come with restrictions on how they can be used. And so Ukrainians used their ingenuity and took down 3 of Russia's most important planes, of which there are 24 of these between the IL-76 and the A-50. There was about 24 in total. 3 of them have been destroyed in the past couple of weeks. So Ukraine is doing having amazing successes. But but they're going to.
But when we when we go through the headlines of the international media that is covering the politics, the international politics surrounding the war in Ukraine, we are actually seeing. You mentioned just the case of the alleged Ukrainian prisoners of war that were supposed to, according to Russia, be on the board of one of those planes. We do not know whether it's true or not. What we know is that Russia creates its aviation democracy, avianная demokracja, that's in Russian, which basically means causing the planes to fall out of the sky if it can solve some political problems for Russia. That's nothing new. We got a long history of this kind of events, but what we are seeing constantly is the great debate about the U.S. spending and limiting the U.S. support to Ukraine as a kind of, I don't know, a play of the U.S. Politics, while the things that you just mentioned are going on in Ukraine. What do you make of it? What's the reason for this?
Well, and obviously the U.S. politics is a thing that everyone is thinking about, and that's why I wanted to mention that Anne Applebaum story in The Atlantic. And Anne Applebaum, of course, well-known commentator on Eastern Europe and on the horrors of the time, the evils of the Soviet Empire. She's married to the Polish foreign minister, but she has this article that's very revealing. It says, "Is Congress really going to abandon Ukraine now?" And in the story, she claims that the U.S. rallied the world to help Ukraine. She never once mentions the United Kingdom. And the story is basically a vehicle to attack American Republicans and to say it's all the Republicans' fault for not supporting Ukraine. But this misses the reality that everyone here, people here are very careful how they talk about this, but it is very clear that the White House does not support, is not willing to stand for real victory for Ukraine. Not only that, the White House is not willing to stand to even defensively protect a city like the place from which I'm speaking to you, Kharkiv. They will not send Patriot missile batteries here. There's plenty of them across the border in Poland, and they will not send them to protect these cities because people like Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, thinks that somehow that would be an escalation. That's their favorite word they use when I think they don't want to solve a problem. And so Anne Applebaum is sort of doing their promotional work, claiming that the U.S. has been the, leading.
We are talking about the blame game. We are talking about pushing or proving, in a way, or trying to prove that those are the Republicans who are not in power in White House right now, are responsible for the way that the U.S. Administration handled this crisis for the last two years. I just quoted at the beginning of our program a very interesting and sad, in a way, article by Washington Post, claiming that there is a kind of a new strategy for Ukraine by officials of the current U.S. Democratic administration that does not plan to regain territories lost to Russia by Ukraine, which means that we are, hundreds of miles away from the policies that we talked about 2 years ago, when we remember American officials and Great Britain officials and other officials, NATO officials, who claimed that the only regaining of the territories and throwing back Russia from the territories it occupies since 2013, 14 may be considered the end of this conflict. Did anything change in that regard?
Well, I think, first, because I know, this is a very delicate topic, right, to mention. Even as I stand here where I could get hit at any moment, we have to be mindful of delicate political sensibilities in the U.S. And, there are many Republicans that are ignoring this problem. And part of it's because they don't trust the White House. But they're ignoring that, here, all these people around me here in Kharkiv, these are the heroes of freedom. Everyone here, to a person, believes deeply in this idea of freedom. And Republicans, for all their rhetoric of freedom, many of them are ignoring that. But part of it is also because they look at the White House spending proposals, they look at the White House plans for Ukraine, and they don't see a serious plan. They don't see a serious strategy for victory. This is the thing that we have to cut through if we're to change the course of this war. And I think Ukrainians have shown time and time again that with the little resources they have, they can do extraordinary things. They can hit Russian bases in Crimea. They they can get the Russian Black Sea on the run, so they has to move to a port much further away. But what we've done the past several months, there's been such a slow trickle, really no new weapons coming here since October. And that has given, once again, Russia time to restock and resupply to rain hell down upon Ukraine on a weekly basis once again. In fact, we're due for an attack either today or tomorrow, I'd say, any moment right now. And so this is where, the fact is, the United States and Germany really, but really the U.S. is the only country that has the might, the military mechanical might to send weapons that can change the course of this war. And this has to be the choice that we make. Do we actually, and it's going to require people to step away from their partisan games, really, and say, and I think, Ukraine can be a tool to help fix our politics in America, because right now there's so much dishonesty and there's so much confusion. We hear, billions of dollars, but actually most of that money stays in the U.S. Most of that money goes to American defense contractors and so many other causes. And it's money that we would have spent anyway if there was no war right now, because we're always resupplying our equipment. And so all of that obscures the fact that very little support is actually coming to Ukraine. But people love to, those who say they support Ukraine, it sounds nice and you sound like a hero. And Ann Applebaum, in her story, wrote about Joe Biden's great speech in Kyiv like over a year ago. Oh, these great, brave words. But you can make all the brave words you want. But then look around me here.
Yeah, it looks in a way like a twisted reality in which the great speeches are not backed by as great policies, and on the other hand, where the people who are really not those who are responsible for the current policies are blamed for it because of the internal politics. I've heard of very interesting words by Seb Gorka on GB News 2 days ago when he asked by the journalist a question regarding the potential Donald Trump's policies in that regard. He asked the question whether this kind of things will ever happen on Donald Trump's watch, which is a great question. We do not know the answer to this question, but we know that all of those things happened a few months after the sad reality of pulling the troops out of Afghanistan, what for the first time showed the weakness of the United States, something that we would never want to see in this part of the world. Joe, thanks a lot. Can you give us a few words about the current fundraising status? What is the flow of the money? What can our viewers support? What kind of activities of your charity and your fundraiser support to help Ukraine fight against Russia?
Well, we're still buying drones, both surveillance drones and drones that can help with search and rescue, which we welcome tax-deductible donations for that at UkrainianFreedomNews.com. And if you send money via PayPal, we can buy the FPV drones, which are directly used. These are about $500. They have some kind of night vision on them. They can be used in the dark. And those are used to hopefully take out millions of dollars worth of Russian tanks and other equipment. So if you want to support us, UkrainianFreedomNews.com, PayPal will help if you want to buy the things that actually stop the invaders, and tax-deductible donations we can buy drones that can help rescue people and help people evacuate. And, Mia, I want to, as I stand here, both in some sense, and this is very chilling to consider, but both Moscow and Washington are waiting for the spirit of the Ukrainian people to break. Moscow is actively trying to destroy it, but many in Washington are hoping that spirit breaks a little bit because they don't want to have to deal with this problem. And that's why I'm here in Kharkiv, because the people here refuse to break. And how many people would break after, suffering through this every single week? But they don't break. As you can see on the streets, the city is lively. And so this is a test of, we're facing the school shooter of nations. And this is a test of our mettle. Will we stand up?
Yeah, so as the old saying goes, we need a good man with a gun, as the old saying says about the thing that is needed to stop a bad man with a gun in a way. But it is sad also for me, a citizen of Poland, of country that was bleeding out while the Russians were attacking us after 1945, and for the whole generations of people who ran away from the communists and were trying to find the communist and Russian imperialism while the world on the brink of the Cold War was just watching it for years. And when the Iron Curtain finally failed 30 years ago, we are seeing the same old scenario. Where is Ronald Reagan's spirit? Where is Margaret Thatcher's spirit? Where is all of this? Pretty sad to conclude in that way. Joe, we see each other next week.
Michał, dziękuję. Until next week.
Dziękuję. Ladies and gentlemen, you can join us on our Substack. The address is Rachon, like the name of the show, .com. You can find the website here. You can leave us your email, as we are reporting daily, or almost daily, from the front lines of the war against our civilization. Stay safe. See you soon. We'll be back on Telewizja Republika. Do not forget to subscribe.